December 1st, and usually the first of the month I'll change the oil, but it's pretty cold out here today. If I get a chance, I'll do that. But I'm gonna look through the clear inner covers, and then also check out the bottom boards. And any of the hives that are insulated like this, they have a foil face, and it keeps the brood minders from sinking. So when I pop that top, I'll just set my phone on there and sink that hive. But this is hive 1, pretty well insulated. Wow, look at all those bees. A lot of them up top here. Quite a bit of warmth coming out of there. A little bit of condensation just at the edge here, so I must have a seal that's not quite perfect. Take a break here and get this to sink. All right, hive 1 is at 158 pounds. It is 69 degrees up top and 75 in the middle. And since we're here, again, this has not been cleaned in over about a month now, so this is not really indicative of what's going on. It's since they're kind of clustered, I doubt we're gonna see many pests taking over just because of the temperatures. But it's good to see if there's anything like that. Looks like most of their activity has been on the left side of the hive. You can see all this dropping. A little bit of wax moth frass in there, not a lot. Looks like there may have been a larvae in there or something. Yeah, that's about it. Small hive beetles, a few of them adults, but they're dead. All right. So that was our hive 1 we checked. This is hive 1.5. It's a double deep as well. What I did is I have just a medium super on here and 2-inch chunk of foam. And if I can get my finger in there. See what's going on here. So this doesn't fit as snugly, so you can see a little condensation along the edge. Feel quite a bit of heat coming out of there. Just a few bees up here, so they're probably clustering down below. And there's a few coming up to the light, but that's all we're gonna look at. We don't want to bother them too much. They never did get around to propolising that entire centerpiece. That was an overwinter queen from last year, so this will be her second winter. We moved her out just to prevent that one from swarming. So we went ahead and created a split. This is the bottom board of hive 1.5. You can see a lot of their activities right there in the center. Probably as it gets colder, they're going to be clustering a little tighter. Starting to get condensation in here. It's dripping, looks like, along the edges. That's just mold that's growing there, but you can see there was a fair amount of mites in here. We were treating these pretty heavily because their numbers were a little higher than we want them to be. This is hive 2. This is sort of a hybrid, so I have my slatted rack and my Freeman bottom board on there. Let's actually take a look at that first. The actual stand is starting to bow. You can see there's less oil on that edge. Look at the cluster. If there's much of a cluster is over here. We'll see how they're doing. Looks like there's maybe a little bit of condensation here in the corners. So pulling this off, what we had here, this is not part of the licensed box. I just wanted to have a clear inner cover so that I could look in here over the winter, or fall and winter, not really even to the winter yet. And then I just strapped that to compress that a little bit more. And these lids are very heavy, very thick, dense insulation. Oh wow, that is not what I want to see there. Look how much condensation's up here. That's a lot. So this is just a gasket that's in here, and then the lid compresses against it. You can see where it's compressing. Seems to be sealing pretty well, but we've got condensation all the way across the whole top. Now they do seem to be licking it off. I'm sure you can see that. Are they up here just collecting water? There's not a lot up here either. Interesting. So this hive went queenless, so it's kind of hard to truly test them, but their upper sensor's at 67 and the middle one's at 58, and they're at 135, but these boxes weigh considerably less. That's a good reason to potentially move over to these, just to have a little bit less to lift. There is an additional frame in there, but the box still more than offsets that. Now this is Hive 3. This is a full poly setup, including the bottom board. I have a bottom board for that, but I want to be able to do OA treatments. That's one thing I cannot do with this hive currently, is an OA treatment. I think the best way to do it would be to put a wood shim up here, treat them, and then take the wood shim back off. But that would involve opening up the propolis seal. So not necessarily what I would prefer to do. It'll be interesting to see if this has any condensation in it. A little bit, just over there. And there's a cluster. Cluster right in there. But there's some condensation right over the top. And look at that, we're getting condensation in here, enough that this is molding. Interesting. So there's actually condensation on the inside of the gasket, so this is the warm side, so that makes sense. Maybe the gasket's not as good as we hoped that it would be. See, this is a little bit lower, but these are stepped. So the gasket's setting on that. A little bit of moisture on there. Interesting. All right, well, we'll see what they are hovering at. Again, it's not necessarily the temperature in there. Condensation is a concern, but the temperature's somewhat level, then they won't have to use as many stores. Oh, and this is why I got the license over the Hive IQ. Hive IQ could probably add something like this, but this is actually a tray, which you can use as an oil tray. So you can do mite drops counts and stuff like that. But it's actually an oil tray, so it helps small hive beetles as well. But you can see it mostly near in the middle of this hive. This doesn't go all the way to the front though. And it's also made out of insulation, so it's more insulated than some of the other hives. They seem to have, everything's insulated, then they either have a plastic bottom or they have just a screen or a plastic insert. Which, if you can insulate the hive, you might as well insulate the whole thing. I mean, there's not a lot of insulation there, but more than the other hives have. This Hive 3, the middle sensor is not receiving right now, or not reading right now. So up here it's 56 degrees. Again, that cluster looked like it was probably near the middle. The overall weight's just about 100 pounds. So they were packed with honey. So some of these other ones are 160 pounds. This is 100 pounds. So this overall hive setup is about 60 pounds lighter. Move on to Hive 4, which is very similar setup to Hive 1. They had a lot of bees in this hive, so I think a usurpation swarm tried to get in here, but they killed that one's queen, and then all the bees ended up coming in here. So it looks like a lot of activities over on this side. And these have been getting mite treatments too, but I don't see a lot of mites down there. So I'm gonna break on all these, so this does contribute to the weight. Also does too. And I'm putting these on just to keep this insulation a little dry. It's not styrofoam, it's polyiso, so the moisture does affect the R value a little bit, but it's still more than polystyrene. Excuse me. And then just a little tab as we get these out. Very busy cluster. Moving around quite a bit. There is condensation around the edges. Feels really good. It's impressive that these homemade hives are doing better than some of those other ones. But it may be the queen too. It may not just be the way the hive is, but there is a little stuff over here. I'm going to do a quick reading on this and I'll let you know what the temperatures are. Hive 4, it's 74, 64, and it's 158 pounds with everything. And Hive 5 is kind of an anomaly. Yeah. They were also queenless, but I pulled a nuke and just went ahead and did a combine. Newspaper combine, they ended up being a triple deep. I put the insulation on, but it's only really insulating the upper two boxes, so we'll see what they look like. First, ooh, it's getting a little moldy, so that could be condensation, but that needs to be cleaned probably today. That's pretty nasty. If they're in here, I would wonder if they even made it up to the top. Let's check this. Alright, high five. Got that outer lid off. Oh man. Oh, there are some bees up here. Let's see them as good as I can. So the sensor in this hive, and there's only a little condensation on this left side. Not much on this right side. It looks like most of them are on the left side. They were chimneying on that left side. We saw them when we last inspected them. Yeah, got actually a Nicot frame in there, but she laid in the cells around it, so I just left it in there. A little bit of heat. I do need to do the sensors. This hive's a little different. It has a sensor here. It's at 67. The one down here is at 54, and we also saw a cluster up here in the third. And this is 176 pounds as it sits right now. And this is moving over to hive 6, which is also insulated with my DIY system here. Everything looks fine in here. Very little condensation. Let's see what that means for us. Insulation came with it. Stuck to the lid. There's our bees. I see a tiny bit of condensation over here. Not much. Alright, I'm gonna get some numbers and I'll let you know what that they are. Alright, hive 6, 63, 61, and overall it's 161 pounds as it sets. There's a bee came out of the hive. Alright, now we'll check hive 7. I really don't want to have, I'd like to keep going into winter with 6 and then figuring it out from there. I've got way more bees than I want right now, but if I can just sell more in the spring. And we got some mites in there, but nothing too crazy. A little bit of condensation at the back. This one is kind of our control hive this year. There's absolutely no insulation on here except for just above the inner cover. Just a wooden box. I was going to insulate it, but I wanted to have one that was on scales that was not insulated, just for reference. So we ended up moving the insulation over to this other Nuke. Well, it's a Hive, but we're calling it Nuke 16. So again, no insulation at all. A little bit of bees up here, somewhat active. Not a ton though. And these devices usually, if there's no battery issues, they sync pretty regularly because there's nothing on the outside of them. I'll get you that data real quick. So for uninsulated Hive 7, it's 63, 54, and I think that's 153 or 154. These temperatures are not too drastically different than the other hives, but they're losing weight a lot faster. So again, that's where the insulation comes in. And these seem to be doing the best, although those seem to be the easiest. So I think I'm going to start transitioning maybe over to something like that, figure out that gasket issue on the top. I think it's just going to be lighter weight, and it's just going to be easier to not have to do this every year. Although it works well, I'm just trying to transition to stuff that's a little bit easier so that I can do other things with my time. And this is our Nuke 16. I'm going to put the top off the cover. Oh wow! So these are fully insulated like those other hives. I was surprised that there's not a single bee that I can see in here. It's propolized up. I don't have any sensors in here, so I don't know what exactly is going on. A little condensation just in the corners. There's a good amount of heat in there. And I'm gonna take a second to pull that bottom board, show you. All right, A couple things to note here. I was just thinking about when I was pulling this out. Do a lot of condensation in here. I can hear the bees in there when I pulled them out, and you can see where they were, so they're pretty clustered. This was the last one to get wrapped. I think that was the second to the last, but it was cool after we did that one, and then we had a few cool nights before we put this one off, so they may have already been clustered down, that lower section. So they may have already been started to brood down before I insulated them. They look okay right now. Again, those are the hives we've already checked. 1, 1.5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Nuke 16. I never really want to have more than that, but I also have this Nuke 17, Nuke 22, Nuke 10, and Nuke 12. I did put them in as much 8-frame equipment as I had. I just find it's a little easier to manage them, just because I got too deep to look at instead of having to peel stuff off. So this one's actually triple deep, but it also had a super. It was from this hive. I just put it over here so that they could use it over the winter. I'm guessing we're not going to see any bees in the top, just because of the way the heat's going to work in here. You can see there's activity in the middle though. You can see where the cappings were chewed off there. All this brown is. And I'm going to take 1 second and pop that top real quick. So the top of the Nuke and most of the other ones, they have like a Reflectix inner cover, and then there's a feeder shim that I made, and then where I had it, I put half-inch insulation. And I don't see anything in there. I do see a little condensation at the edge. Other than that, it's fine. Really don't feel much warmth up here either. So we'll see how they do. This is more like a tree cavity, but I don't know how many bees are actually in there. All right, we're calling this Nuke 21 or 22. I can't recall what it was. I think it was 21 maybe. I have a BMX cover that I have for my queen vessel. So I went ahead and used that. It is 10 frame, but it works just the same, it's just a little wider. So let's get a little insulation, get a little Reflectix. And then I got a feeder shim. And hey, look at that cluster. You can actually see the shape of it. A little bit of condensation here. You see that? Actually, a little drip over here. Pretty tight cluster. Pretty high in the box already. Alright, let's get that covered back up. And here's the bottom board on that. I think it's Nuke 21. You can see the cluster is kind of near the front there. Alright, I'm gonna try to do the bottom board on this one. Try to get through these next two real quick. Let's get a little moldy in here too. There's a fair amount of activity over here, but there's a good bit of condensation too, and moisture in there. You can see that clearness is condensation, it's water. There's a fair amount of cappings over there too. You see that? There's actually a larvae in there. There was a larvae too, so it's starting to get a little cold for anything to survive. But all right, and this is Reflectix again on the inside, and medium super, 2-inch insulation. Plenty of bees in here. Condensation is all on this side. You can see that well. A little bit on this side, not much over here. Just kind of along the back. Fair amount of heat in there too. Things look good. So hopefully they're managing whatever pest that was. This is what I meant about the insulation. It really sits down in that so that it seals up tightly. But there still can be little gaps in here. This is painted the color of our house at one point. Just keeps it dry. It'll be interesting to see what's in there. I'm gonna get into it. And that was actually a we used a lot of graphs from that one. That was actually our Nuke 7's Overwinter Queen. So this will be her second year. Just notice this. You get a little woodpecker. ring in our little pawpaw tree. See that or not? That's kind of neat. All right. And again, this is a B-Max. It's made for 10 frame wooden boxes. They make 2 different covers, so if you order one, make sure you order the right one. Reflectix, again, reflecting side down. And that's to radiate the heat back into the hive. Styrofoam. There's some activity. You know, they're still alive. A little condensation on the edges. Don't see any issues. Just not a lot of bees. Again, they're not insulated either. So. Okay, so that's a sign of wax moth. There's a little bit of brass. And it looks like this is all recently uncapped. And then also in the center too. So this is probably brood. That's probably honey that they're starting to go through already. Not quite to the winter yet. So we'll see how they do. And this was a swarm that was caught about a block away. The easiest thing is to use wooden boxes and not insulate. Or we probably don't need it. I do like the idea of insulating to help the bees out. It may come back and bite me in the butt because there may not have any place for the bees to lay in the summer or in the springtime. But I also like the idea of the hives being a lot lighter. So I went ahead and bought 2 more licensed hives. I'll have 4 total. So I'm having 2 and 2 is the goal, and those will all be licensed hives, and then get the rest of the hives off that rack. And then I think I'll have 2 more is where I'd like to be, and then the rest potentially nukes that could be sold. So this one's easily sold next year. That one's easily sold next year. These overwintered ones, I really can't. I don't feel comfortable selling one that'll be on their second winter, but all the bees in there are great. So I can split those down, knock those out, give them a new queen, and then take the old queen and put her in just a nuke for resource reasons. Same thing with that hive. This would be good to be sold. That's an overwintered queen, so we'd have to be breaking down too. But everything except for hive 1.5, nuke 17, and nuke 10 are green queens from this year. Solstice is coming pretty soon. We're in December now, so I'll probably try to treat them with OA vaporization probably twice. Try to get those mites down to 0, and then really need to get the oil changed so we can do counts just to kind of see what their fall is this time of year.